Good morning, everyone. My name is Krystle Zuniga, and I'm presenting on nutrition and lymphedema. And starting off with a disclaimer, there is very limited research on diet for prevention or treatment of lymphedema. And there are currently no dietary guidelines by any organization for lymphedema management. So the recommendations proposed in today's presentation are based on my understanding of nutrition science and factors that are known to impact the lymphatic system. But also keeping in mind that these dietary recommendations not only have benefits potentially for lymphedema, but have benefits for overall health. So at least you'll have some takeaways related to that. So first, an overview. What I'll be discussing today are dietary strategies that could reduce strain on the lymphatic system. That includes weight management, sodium, hydration, fat, alcohol, gut health, and an anti-inflammatory diet. And then I'll end with a summary overview. So first, weight management. What we do know is that excess body weight increases the risk of lymphedema. So that body fat, called adipose tissue, produces products that would enter into the lymphatic system. And so more adipose tissue, more things entering that lymphatic system, and that could overwhelm the capacity. Also, that excess weight can put external compression on the lymphatic vessels, potentially causing direct injury to that outer layer of the lymphatic vessels, leading to collapse. Also known that it could reduce the effectiveness of compression pumps or sleeves that are helpful in lymphedema management. And also excess body weight may limit mobility, which could reduce lymphatic flow. So the impacts of excess body weight on lymphatic system, multiple mechanisms. So will weight loss help with lymphedema? So there's been a few studies in breast cancer. There have been very limited studies in other populations, but I'll share a recent paper published in breast. It's a meta-analysis, so looking at the results of multiple studies and studies that looked at weight loss and if that impacted lymphedema. And what they found was that weight loss did impact volume in the unaffected arm as well as the affected arm. So overall, it reduced volume of both of the arms, but the weight reduction did not reduce the severity of lymphedema. What they propose here is, why is there not a benefit of weight loss in lymphedema severity? Is that obesity could be contributing to this fibrosis of the lymphatic system, so that inflammation contributing to fibrosis, which is irreversible. And so weight loss may reduce the load on the lymphatic system, but it may not be effective at reversing some of this damage that has already been done on the lymphatic system. But what we can take away from this is that weight management is an effective strategy for managing lymphedema. And briefly, because this could be a whole presentation on its own, is what do we mean by weight management? Is that the energy coming into the body is what the energy needs for energy out, and then that can lead for weight maintenance. But if there is a need for weight loss, need to shift that there be less calories coming in from the diet, more calories coming out through physical activity. And so this results in negative energy balance, which can be helpful for weight loss. I want to be clear here that energy needs vary amongst individuals. I can't look at you and say, oh, you're a woman, you need 1,500 calories for weight loss, or a male, 2,000 calories. That energy needs vary amongst individuals based on their gender, age, illness, if they're in cancer treatment, for example, level of physical activity, and their muscle mass. So what I'll present a little bit later is it's important to work with a professional to get personalized recommendations for safe and effective weight loss if that is something you'd like to pursue. And we recommend about 1 to 2 pounds per week being a realistic goal. And that's about a 500 calorie to a 1,000 calorie a day deficit, either through reducing those calories in or increasing that calories out. Again, I know this is very surface level, but we have a lot to talk about today. But some tips in being helpful for weight management is, instead of focusing on restriction, and that can seem really overwhelming, I encourage people to look at what they could add more of in their diet. Choose nourishing, high fiber, high protein, low calorie foods that can keep you satisfied. Practicing mindful eating, so being more aware in your eating experiences, and that can be helpful in having appropriate portion sizes for you and eating until you're full and not past the point of fullness. But highly recommend this point here is working with a dietitian for a personalized approach, doing that goal setting, meeting you where you're at. And so you can find an approach that's going to work for you in the long run. Because right now in January, that's where all of these fad and crash diets are being promoted. And I recommend against that these crash diets, you might lose weight quickly, but they can be hard to sustain. And this frequent weight cycling can make it more difficult to lose weight in the future. And that, as I'll discuss later on too, is that we need to look at, are you getting a variety of nutrients to meet all your vitamin and mineral needs? Is this something that you can maintain in the long term? Does this meet your individual nutritional needs? And as you'll see, that some of these popular dietary approaches might not actually be appropriate or helpful for someone who has lymphedema, as we talk about some of the dietary recommendations that I'll be discussing today. So I have to wrap that up quickly, but weight management, that is something that we do know could be helpful in lymphedema management. But what about the role of sodium? Sodium, our chemical name for salt. So limiting sodium. Excess sodium promotes fluid retention. And so that fluid retention leading to swelling, and that can worsen lymphedema. It is recommended that individuals consume less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. Those over the age of 50 or have hypertension, that recommendation is 1,500 milligrams or less a day. Typical American is getting twice that, about 3,400 milligrams a day. And sodium, is not just in your salt shaker. That the primary sources of sodium in the diet are going to be processed foods. That would mean breads, rolls, cereals, pancakes, waffles, so a lot of those grain foods, deli meats and cheeses, pizza, chicken even, because they use sodium solutions to keep those chickens moist, chicken breast moist, for example, soups, snacks like crackers and chips and cookies. Those are really a bigger source of sodium and contributor to sodium in the diet than table salt. So I hear people say, well, I don't add salt when I cook, or I use very little salt when I cook. I'm like, well, the good thing is that you're cooking at home and then you're having more control over sodium, but also pay attention to these other sources of sodium in the diet and trying to minimize those. So look at that label. And so some strategies to reduce sodium is choosing lower sodium versions of processed foods, sodium-free, low sodium, very low sodium. Add flavors in your cooking that don't use salt, herbs and spices, or sodium-free seasonings like Mrs. Dash, lemon or lime juice, vinegar can add a lot of flavor. And then choosing more of this stuff here on the right, more of those fresh foods that are going to be naturally low in sodium, also adding less table salt when you're cooking, and limiting the use of condiments, which are also a significant source of sodium. And there's also things that you can do to increase the excretion of sodium. Increasing water intake can help with excretion of excess sodium. It's helping the kidneys get rid of that extra sodium. And also increasing potassium intake can help with that excretion of excess sodium. And potassium is going to be found in those fresh foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, Whole grains, beans, lentils, salmon even, and dairy are good sources of potassium, which can help with that balance with sodium. So the goal of reducing sodium is to reduce fluid retention, and then that can help with lymphedema. And that hydration is really important in excreting that extra sodium, but also adequate hydration promotes drainage. That dehydration promotes fluid retention. That lymph will attract more fluid from other parts of the body, increasing swelling in the affected area. So dehydration makes lymphedema worse. Hydration will help with flushing out excess sodium, as I mentioned, and that adequate fluids are going to help that kidney remove those impurities and toxins so that there is less stress on that lymphatic system. So some tips for getting in adequate fluids. Drink a glass of water when you wake up, before each meal, and an hour before bed. That's already 5 glasses of water, getting you really close to meeting your overall hydration goals. So start making it a habit, really having it throughout the day and not just in the evening. We're like, oh, I forgot to drink water all day and chugging right before you go to bed. Right, so avoid waiting until thirst to drink. Thirst is a signal that you are already dehydrated. So getting ahead of that is helpful. If you're exercising, make sure that you're taking fluid breaks during exercise. Fruits and vegetables are also a source of fluid and potassium, so it has a double benefit there. And what are your fluid needs? You know, I hear drinking a gallon a day or half your body weight. These can be rules of thumbs or something to try to reach for, but everyone's hydration needs are different. Checking your urine is the best way. If it is dark yellow or amber, that's a sign that you need more fluid. We're also in winter right now, and it's important to stay hydrated in all seasons. Although you might not be sweating, that dry air is actually taking water from your skin and your mouth. So you might find that your mouth is a little drier in the winter. And then limiting intake of mild diuretics. So alcohol, caffeine from coffee, tea, or soda can increase fluid output. So just making sure that, yes, it can count towards your fluid intake, but I recommend to continue to drink water and not rely on those to be your only source of fluids because they do have a mild diuretic effect. So water, hydration, staying adequately hydrated is important for lymphedema management. And fat. All right, so getting into this. So fat, when it is absorbed, I'm going to show this here in this picture here, what I'm pointing at. Our intestinal cells have all of these little small finger-like projections, and the nutrients enter into that finger-like projection, and fat is repackaged into what we call chylomicrons. So carbohydrates and protein, when they're absorbed, they're going to go straight into circulation. They're going to enter into the blood and go to the liver. Okay. Fat, long-chain fatty acids get repackaged with cholesterol, with fat-soluble vitamins into the lymph system. And so it goes into the lymph, the lymphatic vessel, the thoracic duct, and it travels all the way up. And then it will slowly enter into the bloodstream. So fat is absorbed differently than carbohydrates and fat. So the lymphatic system is needed for the absorption and transport of fats and fat-soluble vitamins from the diet. Long-chain fatty acids are repackaged, absorbed into the lymphatic system. So the theory here is that if there is a very high fat diet, that is more fat that is entering into that lymphatic system and potentially straining the lymphatic system if we're following a very high fat diet. That does not mean that you have to exclude fat from your diet. Again, we don't have any research to show that a low fat diet would improve lymphedema, but this has benefits in and of itself to reduce saturated fat in the diet. So what are sources of those long chain fatty acids? Meats, fried foods as well. Some of these processed foods of chips, baked goods, chocolate. Choosing low-fat versions of products of dairies, low-fat cheeses or milks. Minimize adding excess oil when you are cooking, and draining excess fat when you are cooking as well. So these are all ways to reduce fat intake, because that fat is going to have to be repackaged, put into the lymphatic system. And again, no studies to show that a low-fat diet would improve lymphedema. And there is actually a study done on the keto diet with individuals that had lymphedema. This was a very small study, and they did find that the keto diet helped these individuals lose weight, and that weight loss was associated with reduced limb volume, so reduced lymphedema. So this is showing that there are some potentially benefits of weight loss. I discussed that earlier in the presentation, but that high fat diet didn't have any adverse effects on these individuals in lymphedema. Okay, alcohol. So why the recommendation to limit alcohol? Well, alcohol has a diuretic effect, so it can impact dehydration. As I mentioned, dehydration is something that's negative impact on the lymphatic system. Alcohol is also empty calories. There's no nutrients coming from alcohol, so that contributing to maybe difficulty with weight management. Alcohol can also increase the amount of fluid that accumulates within tissues, so that could worsen lymphedema. So recommendation is that if you do drink, do so in moderation, and then increase water intake. That's going to help with excretion and metabolism of the toxins produced from alcohol. Then an anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. So pro-inflammatory foods, you might have heard of the anti-inflammatory diet. And what does that mean? So, well, I say that it's actually just another term for our dietary recommendations for overall health. Because what's classified as pro-inflammatory foods are things that are high in added sugar, high in trans fat, which that is something that's being eased out of our food system, processed meats, fried foods, and alcohol. So some of these I have already talked about as things to limit. But why the concern about inflammation? Again, that inflammation, not only its impact on overall health, but inflammation could contribute to that fibrosis of the lymphatic vessels, and so that could be irreversible. So limiting added sugar, fats, processed meats, fried foods, and alcohol. Fried alcohol, that would be interesting product. Okay, so what are the anti-inflammatory foods? All the beautiful plants and colors here shown, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes like beans and lentils, herbs and spices also have anti-inflammatory, antioxidant potential. And even beverages like coffee and tea have antioxidants. So consuming more plants, more of these anti-inflammatory compounds can be helpful for an anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. And there is research to show that those individuals that consume more anti-inflammatory dietary pattern have reduced inflammation in the body. And so really we're promoting a plant-based diet. I like to remind people that fruits and vegetables provide more than just fiber and vitamins and minerals. All these beautiful colors in this variety of plant foods also are an indicator of all the variety of what we call phytochemicals. And those are chemicals in plants that have benefits to our health that aren't a vitamin or a mineral or a nutrient, and they have anti-inflammatory, antioxidant potential. And that plants, not only do they have vitamin C, vitamin E, and other antioxidants, they can promote the activity of our natural detoxification system. So you don't need to go on a detox diet. We have detox systems, but these types of foods can promote the activity of them, help them operate even better. And so the more variety of plant foods in the diet, the better. And so some recommendations on how you could include more of these plant foods in your diet. Try meatless meals a few times a week, starting with maybe a meatless Monday and expanding from there. Experiment with meaty plant-based foods like mushrooms, or we're seeing how cauliflower is becoming everything, from pizza crust to cauliflower steaks. And it's really exciting to see how you can get creative with vegetables and not just have steamed or microwave vegetables. You can eat them raw, they can be fresh or frozen. Try a different produce. Next time you go to the store, you can drink them, you can add them to sandwiches, pasta, casseroles, even your frozen pizza on a Friday night. Get creative. And the more that you can include in your diet, the better. And then gut health. This is also something that's been trending, is gut health and gut health supplements. And really gut health is much more complicated than taking a collagen supplement or a probiotic supplement. What does gut health even mean? And why is that important in lymphedema management? Well, GALT stands for gut-associated lymphoid tissue. This is the largest lymphatic organ in the human body. Again, what's pictured here on the right is a depiction of our intestines. So lumen means, intestinal lumen is where all the things from our diet are coming through. They've been digested and now things are ready to enter into our intestinal cells. You see a little finger-like projections here. Okay. And that is our body's first line of defense against things that we're exposing it to from the outside system, right? That are coming inside of the body. So it contains more than half of the body's lymphocytes. And this picture is showing all the different immune cells in that lymphatic tissue. So this area is exposed to more antigens. Antigens mean proteins, foreign proteins, than any other part of the body. So yes, having good gut health is important because the gut is where a large portion of our lymphatic system is. Okay, and so our gut microbiota do play a role in our gut health. They are important in development and maturation of the immune function in our intestine. It mediates the resistance to infection, meaning that it's helping with our defense system by stimulating our innate immune response. So what that means is that these gut bacteria are actually kind of priming our immune system to be ready. It's like, this bacteria, we need to be ready because we're seeing foreign things. And so when something does come in that truly does need to be attacked, our immune system is ready and primed. So our gut bacteria are keeping our system awake and on go. But we've got to feed them and take care of them. So it's more than just taking a probiotic. Right? We have millions of bacteria in our gut. We've got to feed them and take care of them. You can't just keep giving more. So like putting more fish into a fish tank. Just take care of the fish that are in there. You're going to crowd them out and make them compete with each other. And that is not good for an ecosystem. So what do these gut bacteria like to eat? Fiber. So dietary fiber is something that we can't digest. Our digestive enzymes can't break that down. And so they end up in that large intestine, and our gut bacteria love them. Okay. Where is fiber found? Not from supplements. I mean, you could take a fiber supplement, but fiber is found naturally in all of our plant sources. fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains. Okay, and aiming for 25 to 38 grams a day. For women, the recommendation is 25. For men, the recommendation is 38 grams a day. Now, more specifically, the type of fiber that our gut bacteria like are soluble fiber. Soluble fiber meaning it's soluble in water, so it slows digestion, and that is fermented by our gut bacteria. But that doesn't mean that insoluble fiber isn't important. Insoluble fiber helps keep things moving along, and that's going to prevent constipation. So that's also good for intestinal health, and that's also found in a variety of plant foods. So all of our plant foods are going to have a mix of soluble and insoluble fiber, and both of them are important in gut health. But it's, again, not as simple as a probiotic or taking some fiber. There are multiple factors that contribute to gut health. Sleep, prebiotic foods, that means foods high in fiber. Probiotic containing foods like kimchi, yogurt, things that have naturally used occurring bacteria for production of that food. A diverse diet rich in different plant foods, exercise, managing stress, and adequate hydration, and don't forget about that sleep factor. So all the things that take care of us as a whole are also great for our gut bacteria and our gut health. All right, Krystle, that sounds great. This is a lot of work. So I've got to limit sodium, drink more water, limit fat, eat a variety of plant foods. Are you sure I can't just take a supplement? We have another pre-recorded presentation about dietary supplements, and just knowing that, yeah, this is a lot of work. It does take a lot of work to take care of a very complex system in our body. Something as complicated, for example, as our lymph system. And so no, it's not as easy as just taking a supplement. It's important of taking care of overall health, as well as our intestinal health and digestive health, and our immune health as well. So no, you can't just take a supplement to make up for all of these things that, plant foods, for example, you can't replace broccoli with a supplement. Why is something like this beneficial? Eating a whole food, high in potassium, has fluids, has antioxidants, has fiber. And so this is not just something replaced by a supplement pill. That our whole foods have many nutrients to support our health. So this is a lot, and it does seem very overwhelming for some individuals, but a registered dietitian can help. Instead of following a quick crash diet and a simple book, finding recommendations to be personalized for you. Considers the nutritional history, your diagnosis, medications, and really get a whole picture of what's going on with you and your health to provide personalized recommendations of energy and nutrient requirements, if there's side effects, if you're an individual going through treatment, and focusing on the food first approach to develop a meal plan that considers not only your goals of lymphedema management, but overall health. So in summary, the primary guideline first presented was about maintaining a healthy body weight. That is something that we actually do have some research on, about the relationship between excess body weight and risk of lymphedema. And knowing that if you are interested in losing weight, to focus on choosing an approach that would lead to sustainable weight loss and not following a crash diet that could increase the risk of weight regain. Following an overall plant-based anti-inflammatory diet pattern because of its multiple benefits in promoting gut health, reducing inflammation, providing potassium to increase sodium excretion, promoting hydration, that plant-based anti-inflammatory diet pattern. And also that does not mean vegan or vegetarian, just primarily plants in the diet. Maintaining adequate hydration, so drinking adequate fluids, reducing the intake of sodium, limiting fat intake from processed and fried foods and animal fats, promoting good gut health through adequate fiber intake from whole foods. And then the most important point here is to pay attention to how lymphedema reacts to your diet and to develop a personalized approach. You might find that you can't really tolerate any alcohol, or that you need at least 64 ounces of fluid a day. Develop a personalized approach around the recommendations presented today for really understanding how your diet or your physical activity levels or your lack of sleep, for example, are affecting your lymphedema, so you can have a holistic approach, which we'll have several presenters today discussing that. So I thank you for your time today. If you'd like to follow me for more nutrition tips, I am on Instagram and Facebook as Z Nutrition. I also have a cancer focus page, Cancer Nutrition HQ, focusing on nutrition and cancer. So again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions in the panel.